Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here at nap time during a snowy Saturday. I don't have a paper, I have just a provoking thought, just a comment. So I will be very brief to show a little my bias. But before I do that, since last night we didn't talk much about the Science Council, and this is all about PER. For those of you who were wondering what did we drink during the Science Council meetings, we had only water. You can see here. But the main purpose of the picture was to show PER at work. I learned a lot during those few years together. PER, he was the chair of the Science Council, and I was supposed to be the director. But he did many more things than chairing. And I think we at least made a big push to start the discussion for a new CGR and all of that. So PER had a stint of 3 years as chair of the Science Council, but a major impact. So thanks again, Chief. And I used to call him Chief. He never understood why he was the chief. Anyway, so here is your picture, Chief. So I was born in a very small developing country, and I won't tell you all the story because it's 60 years. I am 60 years old, so I have a few minutes. But I've always been interested and worried about capacity development, because for a small country with no national research system to speak out, with only one university and a few farmers around and a lot of cows and sheep, you wonder what is all of this capacity that we are talking about. So my main comment today is that we have a very negative bias over the last 50 years on investing in agricultural research. When we mean investing in agricultural research, we're talking about maize and rice and wheat and many other good things like climate change research and many good things. But where is the capacity to do that? If you take out the Cornells and the Minnesotas and the University of California, Davis and the IFPRIs, where is that capacity coming from? Or where are we going to get it? Schengen talks about country-led strategy, country-led. We all talk about partnerships, so where are they? I had a provoking comment. We have a lot of requests at CIAT, where I am now, for capacity development. I don't know how to supply that. There's huge demand coming for capacity, so I may want to provoke you a little about this just modest comment. So for 40 or 50 years, and Schengen, Phil, and I and a few others studied with the same professor in the same school. We were taught that the rate and direction of technological change is determined by shifts in relative resource endowments and institutional innovations. Hayami and Rutan. We have Julian and Phil with great books proving, although they change the rate of return. Sometimes it's lower than, they modify that, improve. But usually, we all convinced that investing in ag research has had a huge payoff. And we use that under the underfunded paradigm, particularly some of us who are fundraising all the time because we live on charity in the CGR. We are saying, look, we've been underfunded. There's a high rate of return there. We explain time lags and spillovers and all of that. And then in the last 20 or 30 years, there has been a plethora of great proposals to enhance the effectiveness of agricultural research institutions. Books, Bailey, Derek, and myself wrote just one on ag research policy 15 years ago. They had some success, but most of the authors are sitting here on the ag policy. So there's a lot written about let's decentralize. Why having a monopoly in the public sector research in developing countries? Why don't we separate funding from execution? Why don't we create competitive funds? Why don't we create regional competitive funds? Let the private sector do that. How about universities? They've been forgotten, at least in Latin America and in other places. They should have a major role to play in agricultural research. And then we move to building national research institutes, to building national research systems, to innovation systems, to knowledge systems, and we all got a little confused in all of these systems, and now we are creating regional centers of excellence in Africa and this and that. So there has been a lot of proposals. There's plenty of books, paradigms, and proposals. But my point today is that we have been much more productive in proposing these paradigms than really in building research capacities. So that's my point. I mean, it's just a comment. It's personal, it's biased, but I think we've been too much on the paradigm writing, a little academic perhaps, and too little on the how to do it. So who is going to be doing that? Bernard Rutan told all of us that you need researchers to do research. Well, you also need some research institutional framework where those researchers should be productive. So that's kind of my comment. Where are we coming on that front? So institutional change, including the development of capacities to improve the effectiveness and the efficiency of research policy. Sometimes we talk a lot about the effectiveness. We are all results-based managers these days, and we want to get these outcomes, and we are all looking forward in these long pathways to reach these impacts. But we forget a little about efficiency sometimes. What's the cost of reforming the CGR? Or what's the cost of doing this or doing that? So the management of agricultural research itself has received very limited attention, particularly in the last 2 decades. And for those of you who know, I used to work for ISNAR, don't worry, I'm not proposing here that we should recreate institutes that were closed. I'm not doing that today, so please don't leave the room. It's something else that I think is needed. So there appears to be a major imbalance in the priorities for funding public ag research in less developed countries. There's good data from several sources on public funding for research. There's good data on even the age of researchers, who is doing what in each country. But the issue that I want to bring again is we all agree that if we have facing for the first time in humanity a colossal challenge that never happened before all at once. Some people call it the perfect storm. It's the food security challenge plus the climate change and the nutrition and all the things that we've been talking here for the last 2 days. So how are we going to do that without having, to my bias, enough social science research and institutional innovation capacity to address those challenges? Would only more funding answer that question? I don't think so. I think we need something else. And the something else that we need, that I call capacity development, may take 20 years, like it took China and Brazil to build. So we should start provoking now if we want to have it in a couple of decades. So despite growing global investment in public research, many developing countries still do not have sufficient institutional capacity to manage priority research investments, or even to absorb technological spillovers from other countries. We in Uruguay benefited a lot from Argentina and Brazil. We took as much as we could for free, not only the Monsanto seeds that were talked this morning, but from Embrapa, from INTA, we took advantage of spillovers. But to do that, you need an antenna, you need some capacity in some place to even be able to absorb. Now, funding for research is going up, but to use that funding, you need some capacity to use it. Otherwise, World Bank project will be canceled or the project will not end. So capacity development is more than training and building labs. I used to work in a development bank, and we did a lot of those. Training, which is great, and building the labs, but not too much on the soft part, on capacity development per se. So more institutional capacity, again, I think is needed. And mainly on the rethinking on the financing, how to organize research and how to manage public research. How many of the public research directors have been through management schooling or learning or innovating, particularly in developing countries? So we in the CGR are happily reformed, and we're all programmatic now. We are looking at a set of dozen or so global programs, very well funded, multi-year. And the crux of the reform in the CGR has been you had to show impacts. It's science for impact, results orientation. CIA was doing bean research for 40 years, but now we are not doing that. We are doing drought-tolerant bean research for a specific targeted area in a nice, colorful map in some place in Africa. So it's very targeted for the next 8.5 years. So it's less basic, it's much more applied than before. That's the new CGR. Funding has doubled. Funding is up. But the whole thing of these programs is that it was to open the CGR because we were criticized to be too close. And the opening means linking with partners. So where are the partners? Where are the partners? So my question today is, where are they? So if you take 12 countries, I mean, who am I to say where are the partners? But I mean, I'm just counting. So the overall investment in public research is increasing, but there is a huge divide between the haves and the have-nots that you all know. You are familiar with the same literature that we all read. So if you take these dozen or so countries, if you take China, India, and the ones that are listed there, the other 100 or so, the other 120, 125, depends how you count them, of middle to low income countries, they invest less than $0.50 for every $100 produced in the agricultural sector today, despite the commodity bonanza. Less than 0.5%. Colombia, where I live, is so-called investing 0.5%. A very rich country in Latin America, beautiful country, 0.5%. Uruguay and Brazil, perhaps 1 or 1.5, close to 2. And they're supposed to be good cases. But the rest, 120 countries with less or up to 0.5%. So when we say the partners, are we talking about CAS in China or Embrapa in Brazil or Cornell or IFPRI? Or if you take all of this out, there are not too many left to partner with. And you need at least 2 to tango. So the big issue is where are these partners going to come from? Are we meaning northern partners or developed partners and then finding the rest? I mean, that's the kind of issue that we are struggling now that the funding is up, and we are very happy implementing this global new CGR programs. So if you go to the ASTI website, which is the source that we all use, more or less, and the numbers are 2008, but the billions went up a little. Sure, they went up a little, and Phil and Julia have better numbers. But if you believe that at the end of the 2000s, last decade, total public spending in ag research was about 32 billion, very well measured PPP dollars, half in the more developed and half in the less developed. So the split was about half and half. So the developed world was investing about half of the total pie. Perhaps now, instead of 32, we have 35 billion. We will see soon, but the split is about the same. So China, India, and Brazil, 25% of all of that, or 50% of all the least developed countries. 50%, just 3 countries. All the other developing regions, including Latin America and the Caribbean, or WANA, or Sub-Saharan Africa, are from 3 to 6% of global public spending each. Very little. Very little. So it's very highly concentrated in just a few countries. Sure, the private sector will take care, right? Remember the Washington Consensus, we all agree the private sector is taking care of everything. Well, the private sector is without taking the food processing. If you take out the money for food processing, you're only thinking of seeds and other good things in the sector, there are about 8 to 10 billion. So it's 20% of the total. The other 80% is public. So that's the split today. So for example, just to finish my comment, in Sub-Saharan Africa, where is the focus of the CGR and where we all work, half of the 30 countries where there is data have had spending declines or stagnated. So let's get, if you live in Nigeria, the second and third most populated countries in the region have very low investment rates. DRC is spending 0.17%, so less than 0.2% of agricultural GDP, which is only $16 million. And Ethiopia is about $78 million, 0.22% of our GDP. And 50% of the PhD holders, which are not too many, but 50% of them are 50 years of age. So in the next few years, they may be doing other things. So people say, oh, but the CGR's budget is growing, so the CGR will pick up. Private sector is not there yet, there are no markets. Sure, the CGR, but the CGR is $1 billion, and we are really happy about that. celebrating the first time ever that this $1 billion, fantastic investment. We think, of course, we are biased. But that's only 1.5% of the total public spending, or about 3%. We can discuss the numbers, but they're still low numbers, 3%. If you put, if only the high-income countries, if you take out the high-income countries, if you take the US and the Europeans and a few others. So it's only 3% of the pie. Yes, but it's very strategic, it's international, sure, we know that, but it's still a small size of the pie. So to finish, we all agree that qualified researchers are an essential requirement for research organizations to perform. We all agree, and there has been a lot of investment in training to get researchers to do research. And we joke sometimes saying, well, consultants cannot do research. So if you invest all the funding tomorrow from a World Bank loan, it will be hard to find all these researchers that will have the quality research on the table. So my main point that I wanted to provoke your attention after lunch was that the institutional framework in which those researchers that we've been investing in operate, meaning sound research policies, efficient and hopefully effective organizations where they operate, and the skillful management, which I think is the most highly demanded missing skill, is just as critical as the researcher for research impact. Thank you very much. I wanted to provoke you with that comment, and I hope to get very good commentaries and answers so I can take back and see what are we going to do the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you very much.